of all the people that like want to get on a boat and fly fish, typically people in a wheelchair are not those people, especially when you're the one that's going out and doing this. And I don't know if you've ever gone out by yourself or not, but have you gone out by yourself, or do you?
No, not yet. But
okay.
I do row at least half the time. Whoever I'm going with, I'm half the time on the sticks and half the time fishing. Yeah, it's funny you brought that up because I made that decision to buy my first boat. I had not been in a drift boat since I was 14, I want to say, when my dad had a drift boat.
Okay.
So I hadn't even tried to get in one. As a paraplegic, like get from my wheelchair into the boat before I bought one. I just made the decision to buy it and was like, I will figure this out. Because I knew, it started with what you just brought up, and we'll get into that some more, but there are so few places where somebody in a wheelchair can go fish that isn't still water on a lake, like Corn Lake, somewhere like that, on
and even
a river.
that is really limited.
Yeah, there's 3 spots on Corn Lake that I can get to.
I think it took forever just to get the other 2.
Yeah.
I mean, there was just the one spot all the time that we were growing up.
Yep, exactly. And how often, I mean, it's a whole other thing, but how often do you go to that spot and you know that the people that are using it are not
don't need it.
handicapped in any way, shape, or form? They're just like, oh, this is convenient to go out on this pier and bring my chair out here and sit out out in a folding chair, or in a camp chair. So I run into that all the time too, of like having to ask people to move, or
excuse me, can I use this?
It's here for me. Oh, I'm handicapped too. Awesome. Then we can share it, but you need to at least make enough room to let me get out on it. So I hated that. I absolutely hated it because I was so limited in the places that I can go, and trying to catch fish was so difficult. So I started thinking about it, and I was like, well, I'm of the opinion that most of the time you will catch more fish in a drift boat than you will on the bank.
Which is definitely true.
You're just covering so much more water, no matter how able-bodied you are or anything else. Like, you don't get to sit there and meticulously pick through a hole and catch every fish that's in a particular area and stuff. You're obviously getting one shot or a couple of shots in any given spot as you go by. But you're just covering so much water. And so I started thinking about it, and I was like, that's going to be the way to do it. My dad's first suggestion is like, well, why don't you hire a guide and go with a guide? And so I went down to our local fly shop, to Western Anglers, where I love that fly shop. By the way, I grew up going to that fly shop. I mean, that's where my first fly rods came from. Still have my first rod and stuff hanging on the wall from that fly shop back when it was out by the mall before it moved downtown. And talked to them about it, and they said they got a guide here. His name's Jeff McKenna. He's now one of a good friend of mine and one of the best fly fishing guides I've ever seen. But I got all set to go with him, and then he had to cancel. I want to say, I don't remember exactly why, but I think it was because the weather was just going to be crap and the fishing was going to suck, and so we were just going to reschedule. And I appreciated that, because he could have easily, this is part of the reason why I'm making sure to say his name and give him a shout out, because he could easily have taken my money and caught no fish that day, but he didn't want to do that. He wanted to make sure I had a good day on the water. And it was more important to him to cancel it and to try and reschedule than to just take my money. So, anyhow, he cancels, and that week I just happened to all of a sudden see an ad on, I think it was my dad, actually. No, it was my dad, because it was Facebook, and I never use Facebook for anything. So he saw an ad on Facebook for drift boat for sale. in a price range that I could afford. So we started looked up the drift boat and saw that it was fairly priced for what the guy was asking for it versus what it would cost new. Called the guy up that was selling it. He's a park ranger out in I'm trying to remember where he was. Just south of Indian Creek in Utah.
Okay.
I forget what park that was out there. It might have been Canyonlands, at the entrance to Canyonlands or something. But he used it one time. Got it. He and his brother went for a float on the San Juan, decided it was too small for him and he wanted to get something different. So went and took a look at it, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to do it. And, I figured at the price I was paying for it and the condition of the boat that if it didn't work, I could just turn around and sell it again quickly. So, excuse me.
Do you need some more water?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Sorry.
That's all right. Keep telling the story.
Okay. So, got the boat. Had never taken it before in my life. It sat in my driveway for probably 3 months, because right after I got it is when I ended up going to rehab in Denver.
Oh, okay. Is it difficult then for you to get in the boat? I mean, what does it look like?
Yeah, it's pretty difficult. So generally, it depends on the boat ramps. If they're paved and really how steep they are, you'd be shocked at how steep a lot of boat ramps are.
Yeah.
Where it's hard to keep your balance on it. So what ends up happening most of the time is we get my wheelchair next to the boat and I'm able to stand straight up and kind of just pivot my butt around and sit on the edge of the boat, and then usually with some help get my legs swung over into the drift boat, and then I can scoot over to whichever seat I'm going to be in. When I'm in the boat, changing seats is actually not too hard to get from the front to the back to whatever. It's just the initial getting in. And then getting out of the boat.
Wait. So are you getting in before you guys... Are you getting in on the ramp? And
no.
Then, okay.
No. We're putting the boat in the water.
Okay.
And then bringing it as close to the shore and turning it sideways. So, most of the time everybody else takes 1 or 2 steps in the water.
Right.
Instead, we're just turning the boat parallel to the bank and pulling it up on as close as we can to the...
So you can just come in right next to it.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. And hop over into it.
Yeah.
And yeah, we haven't found one we weren't able to do it on. I've had I had a pretty nasty fall a few months ago trying to get in one that was a little more, I don't know if how familiar you are with the ramp that's Newcastle to Silt. So right after you cross the Newcastle Bridge, it has the cement part and then and there's such a drop off between the two.
They really need to fix that.
Yeah,
thing.
and so that one is a more difficult one for me. And not that long ago, I wiped out trying to get into the boat. The boat slid over the top of me. It was so. I was like, I thought for sure I had broken my ankle. And my buddy's like, do you want to just go home? And I'm like, well, what's the point? I'm like, we're already here and I can't feel it. So I was like, let's just get me in the boat.
It's swollen.
I was like, let's just get me in the boat. It's the same, and I'll deal with it when I get home. So.